You're welcome to the Footprints. I'm Wale Olaito. Today I'll be discussing a very important topic and a topic that has been going on, for about 4 weeks now. But the real conflict has been going on for decades. It is around the conflict between the Palestine and Israel. Um, and since 7th of October, when Hamas uh, militants attacked Israel and killed many innocent citizens, the state of Israel, uh, as expected, responded significantly with its military might, and that has equally caused um, many loss of lives. Unfortunately, loss of civilian lives, women and children, since that war began between Hamas and State of Israel. This post is for humanity. This post is for humanity, and also this post, will reflect on the collective failure, of humanity. How we get to this stage in 2023 where thousands of innocent citizens have lost their lives, you know, um, since the current war began. It's a failure of diplomacy and it's a failure of global community in terms of their, inability to resolve this ongoing conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. In June, or especially specifically on the 17th of June, I wrote as part of a series. I wrote a four-part series on religion, peace, and conflict. And in the concluding part of that, um, series, I wrote on Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That was in June, 17th of June. At the time, it was just a random kind of thought for me to write about peace and religion and conflict, not knowing that 4 months later we'll be witnessing a major war in that part of the world. So I would just like to share what I wrote on that topic, and also in closing, I'll provide a bit of other relevant of information. In modern historical context, the Balfour Declaration in 1917 and its lopsided implementation sowed the seeds of discord between Israelis and Palestinians. On 2nd November 1917, in response to the persecution of Jews in Europe, the British government publicly pledged to establish a national home for the Jewish people. Excuse me. To establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The declaration was contained in a letter from Arthur Balfour, Britain's then Foreign Secretary, addressed to Lowland Walter Rothschild, a British Jewish community leader. An integral part of the Declaration of Balfour Declaration states His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. So what I've just read is an integral part of the declaration called Balfour Declaration, which officially, uh, is a document, you know, uh, that backs the establishment of the State of Israel as a national home for the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration was intricately linked to British mandate for Palestine after the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, facilitated the immigration of European Jews to Palestine. This immigration led to the rise of Jewish population from 9% to nearly 27% between 1922 and 1935. 30 years after the Balfour Declaration, on 29 November 1947, the United Nations General Assembly passed the UN Resolution 181 supporting the partition plan of Palestine, the creation of State of Israel as national home for the Jewish people followed in 1948, and the wars associated with the creation of this new country in 1948 and 1967 led to the current state of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. Importantly, the decades-long conflict has land, religion, and politics as common themes. So I need to emphasize this, that integral to this conflict, there are issues around land, religion, and politics. These are the common themes. And I will expand further through the readings of, obviously I'm reading from an article that I wrote in June 2023. And essentially, intolerant secular and religious nationalism lays with prejudice and fear on both sides of the conflict have contributed and continue to contribute to the sustenance of the conflict. Following the Six-Day War in 1967, I'm sure we all know or have heard about the Six-Day War in 1967, known by Israelis as War of Reunification and known by Palestinians as occupation. Israel seized and occupied Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, Golan Heights, and Sinai. On 6 December 2017, the then United States President Donald Trump made a speech in support of the government's recognition of Jerusalem as capital of Israel. The key relevant points to understanding the impact of Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as capital of Israel on the peace process are unresolved issues regarding occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, growing Jewish settlements in Palestine lands, and fate of Jerusalem as capital city to the sides. The situatedness of the conflict within the context provided above is important to understanding Trump's major political shift in his 6 December 2017 speech. Some analysts describe his speech as a departure from the traditional U.S. role as a peace facilitator. Again, I will emphasize that for decades, USA, United States of America, has been play a major role as a peace facilitator in that ongoing conflict. But in 2017, there was a departure from that when then President Trump made a speech in which he, acknowledged Jerusalem as the capital Israel. Some analysts describe his speech as a departure from the traditional U.S. role as a peace facilitator. In his speech, Trump asserted that it is a long overdue step to advance the peace process. In light of many unresolved issues, the relevant question to ask is how can this declaration advance the peace process? That was the question I asked in this essay in June. I was asking in light of many unresolved issues, issues that are very important to both sides. I was asking how can this declaration actually advance the peace process? It is noteworthy that Palestine also consider East Jerusalem as future capital of an independent Palestine state. There is also unresolved issue regarding ownership of the religious compound within the old city of Jerusalem, known as the Temple Mount to Jews, and Aram al-Sharif to Muslims. So we're talking about a major temple there in the old city of Jerusalem, known as the Temple Mount to Jews, and Aram al-Sharif, part of my pronunciation, Aram al-Sharif to Muslims. It houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Islam. So we have this religious compound that is very, very significant to the Jews because of the Temple Mount that is present there, and also we have the third holiest site, a mosque, which is the third holiest site in Islam, in that same religious compound in East Jerusalem. Amongst other unresolved issues, the two mentioned above will continue to escalate conflict, and there are no feasible solutions on how to achieve cultural peace at this stage. Cultural peace is a terminology that is often used within peace activist movement, as opposed to cultural conflict, because there are cultural norms and cultural issues that promote conflict. On the other side, there are cultural norms and values that also promote peace. So cultural activists refer to this as cultural peace. Considering the roles of the religious nationalists, Zionists, and Hamas in this conflict. So in the essay, I was actually recognizing the fact of the role of religion in this. The religious nationalists on both sides, the Zionists and Hamas in the conflict. For decades, international leaders pushed the two-state solution, essentially an independent Palestinian state alongside State of Israel as the only way out of this perennial conflict. However, this solution presents its challenges in relation to borders and the position of Jerusalem. In terms of borders, many Palestinians are in pursuit of reclaiming all Palestine lands, specifically the borderlines before Arab-Israeli War of 1967, currently occupied by Israel. This pursuit appears unrealistic, in my opinion, considering Israel's settlement expansion in the West Bank, which some analysts describe as antithesis to peace. Hamas's policy not to recognize Israel and legitimacy of its government, and the ongoing threats of violence against Israel are inimical to the peace process. Both sides continue to justify the use of violence in pursuit of self-determination on Palestinian side, and Israel maintaining its right to protect its citizens. In relation to Jerusalem, both sides claim the holy city as their capital and consider it a center of religious worship and cultural heritage, with Jewish, Muslim, and Christian holy sites located side by side in Jerusalem. It is not easy to divide the city into an Israeli West and Palestinian East. So again, I'm just that essay emphasizing some of the core issues around land and also the core issues around religion. In an essay in the New York Times in December 2016, Max Fisher wrote that wrote about another proposed solution to the conflict. Max wrote, there are multiple versions of the so-called one-state solution, which would join all territories as one nation. One version would grant equal rights to all in the states that would be neither Jewish nor Palestinian in character, because neither group would have a clear majority. Skeptics fear this will risk internal instability or even a return to war. I just, reference Max Fisher in a New York Times essay he wrote in December 2016. So where do we go from here? Is perpetuating the status quo the solution? So that was an essay that I wrote just about 4 months ago, and since then we've had this major catastrophe in our hands since Hamas terrorist group invaded Israel and killed innocent civilians, kids, women, and obviously the state of Israel responded mightily with its military, and we can see what is going on in Gaza now is a major, disaster by all accounts in terms of the loss of lives of kids, of women, of children in the state of Israel fight against the Hamas terrorist groups who are using people, citizens, as human sheets in pursuit of their agenda. So as I said earlier, this post is not for against anyone. This post is in support of humanity and the need for world to rise up to do something. The United Nations have called for immediate ceasefire just for humanitarian needs, to get into Gaza, to be able to, look after, poor citizens that are just suffering, dying because of this conflict. This is a call to humanity. This is a call to world leaders. This is a call to United Nations, and this is a call to United States to stand up and play the role it has played for decades in this conflict as a traditional mediator and try to bring about peace. This is about peace and, without further loss of lives. The world must come together, and respond. The world must come together and also ensure that the hostages, innocent people that have been captured and, are kept by Hamas for 3 or 4 weeks now, since 7th of October, that they are returned safely to their families. And that innocent kids, civilians in Gaza, the Palestinians that are losing their lives, that the ceasefire should stop. Hamas is an ideology we have to remind, is an ideology. You can't really defeat an ideology driven by hatred and driven by whatever it is driven, whatever is behind the ideology. You can't just win or get rid of that ideology simply by leveling Gaza, regardless of loss of lives of innocent citizens there. It has to be a very strategic approach other than this unnecessary loss of life. The state of Israel, like every nation, has right to defend itself against any form of aggression, but this has to be juxtaposed with loss of lives, and especially loss of life of innocent people. This can't continue. So there must be a peace, a ceasefire on the state, on the part of state of Israel, to be able to really address these issues and prevent further loss of life. So this is a very contentious topic, I know that, but this is my honest opinion about it, and that's why I provide a bit of background from an essay I wrote just 4 months ago. So leave your comments on this video. Tell me what you think, and let's just come together as humanity to be able to, return peace to the world. Thank you again for watching, and feel free to leave comments. Thank you. Bye for now.